What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here, Taco Moto Co. Baja Taco Tours. This is a 2018 Husqvarna FX 450 motocross bike. This is the equivalent. It's not the true motocross bike. So in the KTM line, this would be the equivalent of the XCF. So this is the bike that comes stock with hand flags, a kickstand, an 18-inch rear tire. So that differentiates it from the true motocross bike, which is the 19-inch rear tire, and it doesn't have those other things. But the chassis, the engine, drivetrain, ECU, all the other cooling system, everything else, everything besides that is the same. This is a very popular bike with the wide open desert racers. The woods guys like this machine too. There's quite a few race series that this is a super popular machine, whether you get it in the white or the orange version. And now Gas has the same bike, essentially, same platform, same chassis, same engine, drivetrain. So what is, I think, unique about this bike is that it is running the charging system, so the stator and reg rec, off of the 501 machine. So the 196 watt stator replaces the stock 70 something watt stator out of these bikes. And so because this machine is owned by Rick Marshall, and it's raced by his son Ryan, they do a lot of endurance racing. They do a lot of 24 hours. So they've done like the 24-hour Glen Helen, 24-hour races in Texas. They race a lot of the night race series in the local Moran club. And because of that, because of the night duty that this bike sees, they have completely upgraded the lighting system on this. And that's why this is kind of a special unit here, because it's a hybrid, right? This is the motocross bike with the dual sport enduro electrical system. And with that, they can run this dual light setup. So what's going on up here is the Baja Designs XL80 and then the Racer Edition. And so this is an 8 watt, so 80. The light over here on the right, this is the Baja Designs XL80. And the reason it's called the 80 is because it pulls 8 watts. And we checked it, and it's at about 7.9 amps is the pull, so about 80 watts. And then over here, this one is pulling 3.1 amps. So just a little bit over 10 watts, or 10 amps rather, for the full pull. And that output on the alternator on the complete charging system is at peak is about 16 amps. But the bike needs some, right? So the ECU, fuel pump, the onboard electrical systems to keep the bike running itself. Also, if you have a fan on here, which this one does not, so you can't take, just because it's stated at 196 watts or at about 16 amps, you can't have all of it. So we're using just a little over 10 for the lighting, and that's about all you get. And Baja Designs did their homework and did all the research and knew that as far as the lights that are picked for that kit. So this is a conversion that Rick did to this bike, and we're going to be doing these conversions as well. We've had quite a bit of demand where people have asked us to do that, and so we're going to start carrying the Baja Designs components, and you'll be able to source us for plug-and-play kits. We'll basically ship the entire system pre-wired, ready to go. You just install it on your bike, and we'll have a specific video for the instructions on how to do that, or you could just get with us directly and line it out, and we can do the conversion for you on your bike if you like. The other thing too that we're going to start doing is a engine ship-in program. This one is still the 5-speed transmissions, but a lot of these guys, they want to drop in the 6 gear and then play around with the ratios, and we'll be able to do that as well with the engine program. So these are just that's just a preview of some of the things that we're going to be offering and some upcoming services. I ran this light setup at night, and it's unforking believable. It is, back in the day, the guys used to run the HID system, and they would have to do all kinds of electrical, like really extreme and very expensive electrical upgrades and modifications to be able to run those lights. And the beauty of this setup here is these are essentially off-the-shelf components. So there's nothing super tricky, space age, NASA grade about this. These are all high-level components, but the difference in terms of the complexity, the cost, the reliability of this versus those HID systems, there's really no comparison. The light output of this is comparable in every way, and often better, specifically because you've got the two lights. The weight savings is astronomical. This weighs nothing relative to what the full HID system weighed back in the day. So you really have a hard time comparing the two to each other. The performance and the weight and the capabilities of this just are so much better. It's mind-blowing how far the tech has come on these bikes. And the fact that the reliability is there with this, this machine has been, or these riders, Rick and Ryan, have been running a setup like this on this bike and other bikes for some 4 years and have never had a failure, never had a breakdown. One issue that they do have is battery. I did some extensive testing on this, looking at draw, charging output capabilities, and they have told me that there are times when they don't keep the RPMs up, that the battery will flatline and then they'll have a hard time starting it. And I was able to, through the numbers, through the current draw and then the charging output, make some determinations and calculations about RPMs and timing, and then what battery size to use. So there's some specific things that really should be taken into account to do this setup. And this is really for a high-speed bike, high-speed rider, high-speed rider. When you get into low technical terrain, your charging system is just not in those lower RPMs. Anything below 3, really the charging system is at fairly flatline. It's just putting out enough to flatline the voltage needs of the battery and then the lighting. So it's just keeping up. It's not providing any excess into the battery. So you really, this is not, so who is this not for? It's not for weekend riders, sport riders. This is not a system for hard enduro guys. This is not a system for casual general trail use, unless you're running, now let me make one little exception here, unless you're running the single light. So like if you're running just only the Baja, the XL80, or even the smaller one, you'd be fine. But to run both, that's extreme duty. And so you really need to have the revs continually maintained above around 3,000, 4,000 in that range and up. So as long as you can maintain that sort of RPM range for a sustained period of time, you're okay. Anything below there, and you're just going to be, like I said, especially if you're in the chop and you're doing starting and stopping, and that's just more demand on the battery. And so that's where it doesn't work. And so who is this for? This is for anybody who is wide open. So snow bike, off-road guys, desert racers, Baja 1000, this bike is the exact setup. And Chris Brown, one of the partners, one of the buddies of the Marshalls, won the Pro 30 class on a 500, or a 501 rather, this last year in the Baja 1000. With this exact same setup. And so in fact, the configuration of this was probably initially created and set out by the race mechanic, the team mechanic of Kurt Caselli, and they were using a setup just like this. And so we're sort of borrowing the legacy of that research, the R&D that happened in those days, and we're applying it now to these current model bikes. So I want to show you a couple other really, because this is a wide open desert bike, let's take a look at a few of the things that are endemic to and typical to a bike that is just a wide open screaming desert racer. Take a look at, let's look at the skid plate. So what you can see here are just this pitting, sort of this sandblasting. So the tire is a Gatling gun, the front tire as it's rolling at speed is just grabbing rocks, right? They're catching in the tread, but just the momentum, the forces, the dynamic forces of the tire going just so aggressively and fast across the ground, it's just creating a debris shrapnel field that is just coming and attacking the bike. And so let me go to the other side. You can see how the skid plate just receives all of that brutality, right? And so it's essentially sandblasted down here on the bottom. And notice there's very little, if any, sort of rock scoring from this is not a hard enduro bike, and so this bike isn't being ridden over rocks and tree stumps and logs and getting scratched on the bottom. It's just receiving all that shrapnel. And if you look here at the frame, you can see the evidence of that as well, where just the rock debris, you can imagine that the rider's boots also taking that, and so it's just chipping away and taking off the paint. The foot pegs have been sandblasted, everything sort of in that rock field debris. Let's go back here and look at the chain slider. The rear, you can see the same exact thing, where the rock shrapnel is just eroding this thing and sort of sandblasting and melting it away. Where it's super dramatic is back here on the shark fin, and in the sunlight, it is as if it is being sandblasted, because it is. And it's so folded over, and that's just because of the material is just being attacked and worn away. And the rotor, the disc, also at its face shows that same pitting. If you didn't have something like this, so a shark fin benefits you in two ways. If you're a high-speed wide open rider, you're protecting the disc from all of that shrapnel, and then if you're a low-speed guy, then you're protecting it from rocks, hits, and side forces, you know, like direct hits. And again, this bike is not being ridden like that, so it's not hitting rocks in hard enduro situations. It's having them shot out of a front tire cannon at the bike. So if you're interested in a light setup like this, if you're interested in a 6-gear program for these motocross bikes, let us know. You can throw a comment down here, or send us an email, or text us, or any of the regular ways. We're on the socials and all that jazz. This bike is going to be fielded in the 2022 All the Race Series out west here. It's going to be in the Mint 400, and this rider's a hell of a kid. It's impressive what he's been able to accomplish and do on this bike. So we're lucky to be a part of it. And thank you for watching. And just like the Marshalls, go out, get some adventure.